You're on with Tracie and Eric, and you have an interesting question.
Hey, Dave.
So
yeah, I do.
You're feeling like a minority in the atheist community.
You got it.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I'm a human, as most humans do. You want to find friends, people with the same kind of things, same kind of things in common, right?
I understand.
Right. So, and then obviously, as an atheist, I tried to reach out to the communities here in Dallas and try to meet more people.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that because I grew up and I find myself, I'm a conservative person.
Right.
I'm and I just don't hardly ever find any atheists that are conservative or I feel like kind of like a pariah.
Okay.
And I find that most atheists are left leaning.
Okay.
I know you don't like to talk about politics on the show. I really don't want to talk about politics so much as.
No, but you're bringing in a legitimate atheist issue. So what you're saying is, I am a conservative atheist. Most atheists lean liberal, and so when I go into these groups, a lot of times I'm feeling like the minority again, which is what I thought I could set aside when I met more atheists.
Yeah, it's just like if you tell a group of theists, hey, I'm an atheist, and they kind of, look at you strangely or treat you differently. The same thing happens to me in when I start to discuss things with people. And it's 2018, right? We're not going to kid ourselves that politics aren't in the forefront of a lot of discussions.
Right.
And,
no, you're right.
You hear something, and you hear something and just kind of like, well, I really don't agree with that. And if you start to question, well, just like you guys did with the last two callers. Well, why do you believe that? Why do you think that?
Right.
What's your evidence? And they start to, look at you strangely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to make any relationships. I don't want to be with theists and talk about God all the time.
Right.
And I'd rather talk to atheists.
I understand what you're saying, and so it's kind of like it's like you're between a rock and a hard place, right? So if you get into a theist group, you feel like I can't really freely express myself because these people are going to pile on and disagree with me. Then you go to an atheist group and you know that there's certain issues, and if you start to express your views, they're going to pile on and you're going to be unpopular. And so you're kind of like, where do I socialize? Where do I get my... Yeah, exactly. And I understand that. I want to just say, in the vein of reaching out for common ground with you, I have, for example, often recommended, I've had young women contact me who are not out as atheists, who say, my family's very conservative and I'm in this conservative religion, and they feel very oppressed. I mean, you can imagine what it's like growing up for a young female in a conservative Christian home where you do not accept that you are an inferior being, and yet everything that you're surrounded by is telling you to submit, and you just don't live up to standards because you're not male. And so these young women will say to me, hey, where can I find camaraderie? And every now and then I send them I'll look up atheist groups in their area and I'll say, well, here's a humanist group or a secular group or somewhere where you can go. And a few times they've come back to me and said, hey, I went to that group and I got my ass grabbed. And so what they're doing is kind of like what you're describing. In their heads, they're thinking, finally, I'm going to go and be around a group of people who aren't going to treat me like, the woman. And then they get into the group and then they're sexualized, even in the group that they thought wasn't going to do this to them, right? So they get out of this group that does nothing but sexualize them, where they're like, please let me meet people who respect me and treat me like a human being. They go to the atheist group and then they're treated like that. And they, some of them will go back and try again and some of them won't, but they are having a similar experience to you, where they're thinking to themselves, finally, like-minded people. Well, but you understand what I'm saying. They're thinking that attitude is a religious thing, and then when they get out of the religion and they go to the atheist group, they encounter the same, sexist treatment. I'm not saying that this is every group.
Different, and then they're like, well, that sucks.
Yeah, that's really similar, only even more aggressive. And so what you're describing, there's other atheists that have other reasons for feeling similarly, where they say, I thought I was moving into a group that would be more accepting of me, and they're not really. and you're having that experience as well. I unfortunately, I'm kind of at a loss as how to fix it. Because, do you have a thought on that?
I do.
Eric has an idea for you, so you've called at the right time.
Well, hey, Dave, you know there was an atheist booth at last year's RNC, right?
I did know that, yes.
Yeah. You know, when it comes to politics, I don't want to go too deep into the substance of the politics, but what I do want to go into is talk to you about just how tied up the RNC has gotten with Christian values and promoting Christianity in particular, right? You know, one thing that we do have in common.
Kind of.
Well, I mean,
but I don't think that'll ever happen or go anywhere. That's my thought. I mean, you still have the First Amendment. You still have
well, absolutely, you know, and nobody.
And I wouldn't vote for. I like Marco Rubio to start with, and I'm like, well, then he said, you know, God's law is above man's. I said, you're out. Screw you.
It's not even. We don't even need to go into individual people. What we have in common is, you know, the mission statement of the ACA is promoting the separation of religion and government, right? I think that striving toward that ideal will help make that a better system for you. It's not just trying to make the world a better system for, you know, the left-leaning atheists. You know, it's trying to make it an even playing ground for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sorry that you're there, man. Everybody should feel like they belong. And even though we don't agree politically, you belong here. I accept you. We accept you. And you know what? It's going to be okay because we're fighting to make it better that way. We're fighting for that even playing ground. And then we can disagree all we want.
And I guess that's a kind of a good idea. I mean, if we can, I was just going to say, if we can continue sort of fighting to broaden the atheist community, there would be a broader range of views within the community, correct? I mean, that almost seems like it would, well, it seems reasonable. I don't know if it would actually happen, but it seems like the more people we can, you know, extend outreach to or, you know, gain as far as enlarging the community, that would be helpful in expanding diversity in some of the groups.
Yeah, I agree. That'd be great.
So we're trying.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of a but kind of guy. Do you have time for me to share a particular story with you?
How much time would it take?
1 minute.
Okay, do it.
All right, here we go. And I'm not going to say any names or anything. There's a particular candidate running against another candidate here in DFW area. And that person is the Democratic candidate happens to be he happens to be the husband of a preacher.
Okay.
And he's gay. Mm-hmm. So, and one of the things on, you know, and some people in one of the local groups were talking about that. And one of the things on his website said, I've, you know, used my Christian values to formulate how I approach the world, you know, and the particular topic was immigration. And so I'm discussing this with people. I'm like, well, that's something like Ted Cruz would say. How could you support? And they were asking, hey, let's all get together and support this candidate. And I thought, well, you know, how can you support that candidate if they're saying that, but everybody else was like, hey, we got to support this guy? And I don't get that. I think they kind of like look at, we just don't, you know, if they're against, are they against conservatives or are they against theism? You know.
Yeah, I think that would be a disturbing comment. I mean, if a candidate had on their website, you know, my decisions in office will be, you know, formulated via my Christian worldview, I would be concerned no matter what ticket they were running on. I agree. That's a concern. And then
I raised that point and I got kicked out.
Oh.
Of the discussion groups. Yeah, I mean, of course, it went a little further from there, but you know, it's just, I don't know. It seemed a cognitive dissonance to me, you know.
Yeah. Now, I will say that I am the, you know, what is it, the greater of two goods, I guess, is something I think I heard. It might have been Jeff D that said that. Like when people say the better, like the worse of two evils, and he says, well, isn't that the same as the greater of two goods? And so I do believe in going for the least horrible candidate, but.
Oh, I do too.
But putting, religion shapes my political, decisions. It would rank as one of the check boxes for potentially horrible, right? Like, so as I'm going down the check boxes, if both candidates said that, then it would be a wash, So in the end, I would have to weigh the candidates. I'm not going to say that I wouldn't vote like for a liberal Christian candidate that maybe has this perspective on it if there were another candidate, for example, that was like, I'm racist and sexist and, my goal is to strip everybody's rights. I would probably be like, the liberal Christian needs to be corrected, but at least they've got the perspective of, not wanting to grab everybody's rights away. So I'm not going to say that I would never vote for a candidate like that, but it would certainly be a red flag for me and one of the things that I would have to weigh against other things, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't vote for certain conservative candidates. If I hear those words out of their mouth, God's laws are above man's laws, I'm like, I'm not voting for you.
Yeah, that's a tough one to get over, I agree.
It's not going to happen.
No, I hear your concern.
On the other side, anyway. So, hey, thank you very much. I just
Thank you.
wish everybody would calm down a little bit about the whole politics thing.
Well, if nothing else,
it's going to be okay.
You were able to share with people that maybe they should extend a little compassion and patience with somebody with a different view.
Just a discussion, for God's sake. Well, excuse me, I shouldn't say that on the Atheist Experience.
That's it. You're done. No. Okay.
Hey,
no, thank you.
Hey, a long-term fan of the show. Really enjoy listening to you guys. Eric, It's great to see you on there. I like to talk heathens.
Thank you, man.
You're good.
Okay, thank you.
Y'all take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye now.
Before we move to the next person, what I wanted to say is if Dave doesn't see a group that he, can find, most likely there are a ton of people who are looking for the same thing. So Dave, start a group, man. We were actually at Star of India a few months ago, and we had a parent asking if there's anywhere that they can go for a secular families group, somewhere where it's not just atheists in the pub, but it's a place where they could go and let their kids play and that kind of stuff. Because a lot of people with young kids, they go to their play dates and it's, oh, what church do you go to? First question, right? You should go to my church.
That's not a bad idea. That's actually a really good idea. If Dave is still listening, I think that's something to, maybe put your little headline that's like conservative, ? Atheist, ? Looking for, people to hang out with.
And we're actually getting that going out here. I just want to send that quick plug. The ACA is also starting up.
Like a family group?
Yes, secular families. So if anybody wants to check it out, definitely look on Facebook, on Meetup. I think
that's a good plug.
The first meeting is going to be at the end of this month, and we're hoping that it goes well. We've got some really amazing people who are putting it together. So.
No, that's an awesome plug. I'm glad you mentioned it. All right.
Hi, Robin.
Let's see what we're doing.